Shalom. So today we're going to look at Leviticus chapter 15, verses 19 through to 24. Right? So we're going to look at a few areas or a few aspects of that chapter. So we're going to deal with the issue in the flesh, the meaning of put apart, the duration of put apart. We're going to look at the blood, the menstrual cycle, and childbirth, and also abnormal cycles, the nature of the menstrual cycle or the purpose of it, and also we're going to look at physical contact during these phases. Okay, so now we're going to look at the issue in the flesh, right? So this is the book of Leviticus chapter 15 and verse 19. It says, and if a woman have an issue, now as we know, issue can be normal because when you read a few verses up, you'll see also where men can have issue, which can come from like STI, STDs, or just mucus from whatever reason, right? You will see it in the discharge, right? In this case, it is talking about the menstrual cycle. It says, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days. So for 7 days, that would be unclean, right? Not unclean in the sense of an abomination, but it's just a ceremonial uncleanness, right? So she shall be put apart for 7 days, she shall be separated. This is in the case where it's her menstrual cycle. So the put apart is for 7 days. It says, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the evening. So now we're going to look at the issue being the menstrual, and we're going to see it on a chart of her entire cycle from the first day of it to the last day, which is the day before her cycle restarts. So the day that it starts, that would be the first day of the cycle. So we know different bodies may have different cycle, right? From one type of person to the other. Ages and so forth are different experiences, right? So the first time you see that sign, that's the first day of it. Now, sometimes people can have a 21-day cycle, a 28-day cycle, or even more days, right? Sometimes they don't see it for maybe 3 months, sometimes 2 months, right? So we're just going to go with this as a regular cycle, say 28 days. So this will be the first day. Now, like I said, depending on the stage or whatever it is, you might see it for 3 days, for 5 days, for 7 days, or what have you, right? So now in this case where you see it for 7 days, that's the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, 7 days. Now after this is where you would do your cleansing, right? So in my case with my wife, right, it would be steaming, right? So steaming is very good. Some people might use douche or whatever, but steaming is more natural. You know, whatever element you put inside the water and you steam, right, it gets rid of whatever residue is there, right? So the steaming is very good. So if she sees it for 7 days, then the day after that you can start that cleansing process, right? No, it depends on the man in this case, right? So you're in a relationship what he's comfortable with. So, for example, with me, even back then, prior to this knowledge of this truth, right, I would usually give it 3 days. Why? Just for whatever residues, right? No, anywhere from here, she's out of that separation, right? So after the 7 days completed, so whether it's 3 days or 5 days or seven, whenever that process is finished, right, that separation is also finished. So now on the 8th day, you do your steaming or whatever you need to do, bath, however you cleanse yourself. Anywhere after here, you can go back to your husband, right, in any shape, form, or fashion. No, with the cycle, you would notice that like probably 10 days, like when you reach here, you are more in heat. So from here to here, this period here, you are more in heat at this time. Because of what? The pregnancy, the cycle prepares you for your pregnancy. And if your eggs don't get fertilized in that period, this is why it starts again. To do what? To shed whatever is there that did not get to be used, right? So here is your heated in this time of period here, ovulation and everything. Now as it winds down, it goes back to the beginning. No, 3 days before, you are less likely to be pregnant, right? And back in my time, I would take advantage of these 3 days because of what? You are less likely. Matter of fact, you won't get pregnant at this time. So 3 days before the cycle, 3 days after the cycle. However, 3 days after the cycle is risky. It's not a chance that you'd want to take, but definitely 3 days before, it's okay, right? So that's the cycling of it. And the cycle is from the first day of seeing the period to the day before you see it again. So that's the entire cycle, whether it be 21 days, 28 days, 32 days, whatever period it is, it's the same. All right. What does it mean to be put apart? This is just simple separation. So once she's on her cycle, it means that the husband will keep away from her, so she will have that space. And I'm talking in terms of close intimacy, right? So she will have that space. So for where she sleeps and chairs and so forth, yes, they will be separated. But does it mean that you do not dine with your wife because she's on her cycle or she's on her separation of uncleanness? No, she can appear before you. Who does she not appear before? The Most High. So during that time, you would not go before the Ark of the Covenant where the Most High would appear when we had a temple, right? So whether it be childbirth, whether it be your menstrual or an abnormal cycle of bleeding, you would still have to wait until the days are fulfilled before you can appear before the Most High. But it's not the same in relation to your husband. You can separate for sleeping and touching intimately, right? But it doesn't mean that you cannot go before your husband. It doesn't mean that you cannot sit with him. Now, what is the duration of the separation? Now, different separation requires different durations. For example, for the menstrual, it says, "And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the evening." So for your menstrual cycle, the duration of the separation would be 7 days. After the 7 days, you're clean, you can go back to being intimate with your partner if he's comfortable, or if he gives you days for whatever residues or whatever it may be. As long as you both are comfortable, as long as it's completely gone, finished, you can go back to your husband after the 7th day. Now, the separation for childbirth. This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 12 and verse 2. It says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived seed, and born a man child, then shall she be unclean 7 days. According to the days of the separation for her infirmity, shall she be unclean." So we're seeing that 7 days she's unclean after having a son, right? It says, verse 4, "And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 33 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled." So after that 40 days period, she can appear before the Most High. So separation for having a son would be 40 days before you can appear before the Most High. Now, in the case of a daughter, it says, "But if she bear a male child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation, and she shall continue in blood of her purifying 66 days." So 66 days plus the 2 weeks. So if she has a daughter, then 80 days before she can appear before the Most High, right? Now, in the event where she has an abnormal cycle, where it goes beyond the regular 7 days or 3 days or 5 days, right? If she's bleeding continuously, like when a woman is stressed, right? She bleeds. She'll see her cycle 2 times for the month. As soon as it finishes, it starts again. Stress can do that a lot, right? So let's go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 15 and verse 25. It says, "And if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. Every bed whereon she lieth all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation, and whatsoever she sitteth upon shall be unclean as the uncleanness of her separation. And whosoever toucheth those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. But if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean." So when a woman is bleeding in this case, guess what? The day that she's cleansed, she has to count 7 days, which is the same for the man. When a man has an issue, right? He has to count 7 days from the moment he's cleansed. He has to count 7 days from that point before he can do what? Appear before the Most High. It's the same for this woman. So the 7 days additional only applies to this situation, not in a regular menstrual cycle. Now, the purpose of the menstrual cycle. This is a natural cycle. Happens with women, right? So some do have regular cycles, some don't have a regular cycle. Right now, in this process, what it actually does is to shed what it needs to shed from the uterus through the vagina, and this comes out in the discharge of blood, and among other things. Right? So the main purpose is to prepare the body for pregnancy. So if she doesn't get pregnant, then all of those are being released and going back into a new cycle to start again. After the regular 7-day cycle finishes, then she goes back into that state where the ovulation begins, where she is in heat to get pregnant. And again, if the egg is not being used up, then it does what? Shed again. And so the cycle keeps going round and around and around. Now, physical contact during this phase for a woman, right? Because there are a lot of arguments about the touching this but it depends on what type of touching we're talking about, because some will go into what? Abomination. Now let's look at it. When a woman is in her separation, what type of touch is permitted and what type is not permitted? Can she come and lay hand on you and it's okay? Yes, that is okay. Now let us go to the book of Matthew chapter 9 and verse 20. And let's see if normal touching is okay. Because some people will say if she touches the doorknob, if she opens the car door, if she touches something in the kitchen, everything is defiled. But her hands, what is it that does the defiling? Her hand is her hand. It's the same hand she has when she's not on her cycle. So what is it that would be doing the defiling? Right? Now this is Matthew chapter 9, verse 20. It says, "And behold, a woman which was deceased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment." Now what is this saying? Did it make him unclean ceremonially? No, because it is not the hand that is doing the defiling. Let us go back to the book of Leviticus chapter 15 and verse 23. It says, "And if it be on her bed," what is the it that be on her bed? The subject matter is the blood. It is the blood that does the defiling. So guess what? If her blood touches an object, yes, it is now defiled. So if you go and sit on that object, if you go and sit on that object because you now come in contact with the blood and the object, that is where the defiling comes in. And this is why you had to take a shower. You had to take a bath and be unclean till the evening. Now, touching in terms of intimacy is very different. Let us go to the book of Leviticus chapter 20. And verse 18. It says, "And if a man shall lie with a woman having her sickness, and shall uncover her nakedness, he hath discovered her fountain, and she hath uncovered the fountain of her blood. And both of them shall be cut off from among their people." Leviticus chapter 18, verse 19. It says, "Also thou shalt not approach unto a woman to uncover her nakedness, as long as she is put apart for her uncleanness. So as long as she's in that separation, it's talking about do not make any attempt on her sexually, right? And let's go back to the book of Leviticus chapter 15. It says, verse 24, it says, and if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed wherein he lieth shall be unclean. So guess what? If she's on a 7-day cycle, and you go with her on the 6th day of it, even though it would just be one more day remaining, now guess what? Now you have to wait an extra 7 days because of that. And also, it says, let's read it one more time. It says, and if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days. You can have sex before the cycle comes, and it brings it down a bit earlier, right? So also, but in that case, you both would be going through the same 7 days. So it can happen accidentally, it can happen intentionally, right? However, it's still the same, waiting for 7 days. So the judgment is not removed from that just because it happened. So just to have a quick overview of what we went through is that when she's on her menstrual cycle, you have to go through that 7 days. If she has a 7-day cycle, you go through that 7 days. After the 7 days, then she's cleansed, right? You can go back into intimate or sexual relationship with her after that 7 days, right? That does not require an additional 7 days. However, if both of you are comfortable to go back on the 8th day to have sex, that is up to you. If he needs time, that's something you both can still agree to, right? So that's up to you. That is not a law. We have customs or habits or traditions that we say, okay, the cycle is just finished, I'm going to give it some days. It's up to you as the couple to do that, right? The putting apart is not an abomination. It's just a separation. That's it. Ceremonially. It's a ceremonial separation. So people come and say, oh, those people are separated. Like, oh, they're Hebrews. They're keeping. Right. So this is a way that tell us apart from everyone else. Right? The length of your separation is dependent on what type of separation she's doing. Having a son, having a daughter, her menstrual or her normal menstrual cycle, or an abnormal menstrual cycle, which we say stress can cause that. Right? We went through the period of the law and the childbirth and so forth, so we established all of that. The purpose of the menstruation, which is to prepare the woman for pregnancy. When you get pregnant, then that goes away. So that's a sign to let you know that, hey, you might be pregnant. You missed your cycle this month. You missed it next month. You know that, okay, chances are that you might be pregnant, right? The type of contact, you can make normal touches. That does not defile you, does not defile the objects. If she touches the door, there's no defiling. If she takes your clothes to go and wash, they're not defiled by that. If the blood touches objects, then that is where things are being defiled. So yes, normal contacts can be made. She can come in your presence, but it's not the same with the physical temple to appear before the Most High. Shalom.